Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dealani, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today? Excuse me, I also turned my headphones on, so hopefully there isn't just like some random music which is playing in the middle of the background of like this video I'm recording. Let's see. You know, it doesn't seem like it. I can't even tell if Animal Crossing is making any noise when we're loading screen right now. Maybe my headphones are broken. You'll never know. But anyway, what should we talk about today? You know what I should actually? I generally don't know if it's something I talked about, but like spicy food before, because I had like for lunch I had like a katsu curry with some rice, because I do like a little bit of chicken katsu. Like who doesn't? Well, I suppose there are people who don't, but still. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, it's 9:02 p.m. on Thursday, January 19th, 2023. Okay, it doesn't sound like there's any music or anything playing, so... Oh, shooting stars! Oh, okay. Oh, wonderful. Well, we know what we're doing today. Firstly, we'll see if we can find Celeste, and if we can't find Celeste, then we will do our best to, go what? I don't know. No, we need to find Celeste, find shooting stars, and if we can't find Celeste, then I guess we'll just be like, nah, that sucks, I guess. But yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so for lunch I had a pretty spicy chicken katsu curry. And those of you who've had chicken katsu curry before, you might be like, hey, I'm pretty sure chicken katsu curry is not meant to be spicy. Not usually, at least not conventionally. But this is at like some sort of like market stall. Oh, you know, my volume's a bit louder than usual. Place that I have... but I bought it from, and you know, it wasn't just chicken katsu curry. Like I'm sure it was like, you know, inspired like crossover with like other different things, because they put like this really nice chili oil on it, which honestly it might have been a Chinese chili oil for all I know, because you know there is a chili oil, but sometimes I see like and eat with Chinese food. But apparently it's like some homemade one. And we also put some sriracha, sriracha. That's how you say it. I was like sriracha doesn't sound right. Yeah, they had to figure me out. I basically never have sriracha sauce, hot sauce. Yeah, hot sauce sounds right. As well. So it was basically sort of like doubled up with the spiciness. And I ate it, and I was like, you know, this is genuinely pretty spicy. And then, you know, it's just, you might be like, but that's not much of a story, and, you know, it really isn't. But it's not something I think I've spoken about all about spicy food. For, you know, the amount of times I randomly talk about food, despite not caring that much about food. It's not about, well, okay, no, maybe it is about, I don't care that much about food, hold on. But it's more like most foods are just like, sort of like, oh yeah, it's like kind of nice. But, you know, I don't go crazy for food or anything. But, you know, food is just such a thing that you eat and that you experience so often. And it's very easy to talk about. There's always lots of things to talk about it. So, yeah, spicy food. I don't know if I've spoken about it before, but maybe it was spicy, maybe it won't. But I am actually very, very good at eating spicy food. Like, I'm, like, really good at eating spicy food. And I don't necessarily mean that in a boastful way, because I don't think it's particularly... Well, I don't think it's particularly impressive, so to say. So just like, you know, I can tolerate a higher spice level of food than the average person can. I'd say, like, I'm probably, like, quite high. No, okay, maybe not quite high above average. I'd say, you know, maybe I'm, like, top 25% of spice tolerance in the world. You might be like, that's not actually that high. It's like 1 in 4 people. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, can I think about at least 3 people I can tolerate more spicy food than, yeah. That's true. I can actually think of a lot of people I could probably tolerate more spicy food than. And part of it's just, you know, due to my rather, I'd imagine, dead taste buds, where, you know, it's not that things don't taste different to me. Things do taste different to me, but I just don't retain them. I don't know if that's necessarily what happens with spicy food. I sort of just eat it and I just forget it's spicy, like, immediately afterwards. Probably not. But I've been eating spicy food quite a lot since I was younger, you know. Like, I've spoken to my parents about it. You know, so apparently I've always just like really like spicy food for whatever reason. Just like, I don't know, maybe it's genetic. Well, it's not even that genetic. It's not my parents that aren't like that fond of spicy food, but my mum doesn't really like spicy food all that much, despite the fact that she, you know, it's basically from somewhere in China, which is very known for its spicy foods in the first place. So it's sort of just like, how did that happen? I don't know. And my father, he can tolerate spicy food, you know, but he's not that like fond of it or anything. And you know, especially me when I was younger, I loved spicy food and I could really tolerate it as well. I remember like begging, I say begging, like being like please to my parents, which I guess is kind of begging, you know, like a children's begging, for like buying this like Dolmio spicy like pasta sauce is one time, or like just like actually trying it or something, because like, spaghetti and pasta was like my favorite food back then. It was always the Dolmio ones, and even to this day, I was starting I guess it kind of fills me with a sense of nostalgia. I know it's like I eat it and I'm like, wow, this is not like the highest quality tomato sauce or whatever, but eating it brings me right back to my childhood, I suppose. So that's why I like it. But they have like a spicy Dolmio sauce, and I just really wanted to try it. And I remember I ate it, and I was like, oh, this is like the best thing ever. It's like my favorite food, and it's spicy at the same time. Anyway, yeah. So maybe you will, maybe you won't find it like particularly interesting. But I'm pretty good at tolerating spicy food. I don't normally go out my way to get it, because even though I can tolerate it, what I mean by tolerate it is like when I eat it in my mouth, it's like I can continuously eat it and not be like like that sort of thing. Not immediately need like a glass of milk, which is not really saying much, because it's sort of like the least interesting tolerance, I suppose, when it comes to food, right? So it's like, oh, some people can like survive like cyanide poisoning. I don't actually know if that's true. I'm not really sure if you can or can't necessarily survive cyanide poisoning, but some people have like some crazy like built up tolerances, and then there's just me being like, oh, I have a tolerance to capsaicin. I think that's a spice in chili, isn't it? Something like that. Which it's like fine and all, but like, it's not like much in the way of a superpower. Nor is it like, even as me being like not being a foodie, I suppose it's not particularly relevant to like any of my interests either. It's just sort of like a fun little tidbit. Where I don't know. I suppose sometimes the first time I like go eat spicy food with people is just sort of like, oh, if it ever like comes up being like, oh, try this, it's so spicy, and I'll just be like, eat it, and I'm just like, or I'll be like, oh, I didn't even realize it was spicy, which obviously I don't say it like that, because that makes it sound sort of like I don't know, people like to have a sort of braggadocious sort of feeling about like spice tolerance, right? It's like, oh, look at what I can eat. Well, it's just really mad at like, because I'm sure there's like, I mean, like it's not, I suppose it becomes particularly less impressive when I can tolerate a lot of different foods, mainly because most of my foods are sort of like more subdued tasting to me, I'd imagine, compared to you, like extremely salty. I'm like, yeah, I'll eat it, and I'll be like, oh yeah, it's pretty salty, but it's like, I'm sure, one, it probably tastes less salty to me than it might do to the average person, and two, I'm just sort of like, I don't really care how good the food eats. Wait, what? How good the food I eat tastes. Yeah, very good. That's how you construct English sentences. So that's why I guess it's not as particularly impartial. But you can certainly see it as a thing that people like want to like really, well, especially when you're younger. I feel like it's very common. It was a very common thing back in school where people are like, oh, I can eat such spicy food or whatever, and I was just like, well, I don't know if we're gonna have a spice off at some point, but have you met real spice? And here's me being gatekeeping, I suppose, criticising the exact thing I'm making fun or poking fun of, I should say. I'm not really going to say I'm making fun of it. It seems a little bit harsh, considering the fact I'm sort of just like talking vaguely in its direction. Yeah, but I have a pretty good spice tolerance, is basically long and short of it. Oh yeah, to continue the point I was saying earlier, is like, although like me tasting it doesn't feel spicy, I still get like affected, like it still like irritates like your stomach and digestive system. So even though I can eat a lot of like really spicy foods, I would not recommend eating it all the time, because it's still it's not great for your like digestive system. Well, actually, I don't know scientifically if that's true or not, but my assumption is it isn't great, but I don't know. Maybe that's a different tolerance you can build up, and I just don't have a tolerance for digesting food. I just have a tolerance for the mouth capsaicin reaction thing. I don't know. Anyway, I had a lot of spicy food in my life, to be honest. Most of it in China, I'll be honest. Going to China, there's a lot in the entire Sichuan province is kind of like known for its spicy food, and you might be like, Sichuan, where's that? And it's the same Sichuan as in Sichuan sauce, that sort of Sichuan, except for it's just pronounced Sichuan for some reason, and when it became anglicised, and I don't really know why necessarily, it just did. But yeah, I remember I had like a super hot like chili hot pot like for my birthday one time I was there, and I was eating like my mum and my grandparents, I think. And they were just like, oh, like I remember the servers were just like, you should try like this chili sauce, like this is what most people dip it in. And I'm like, my grandparents don't particularly want to eat spicy food. I guess probably, it's not really something you eat as much when you get older. I don't really know. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try it. And I was like, I don't normally go out my way to have like spicy food or anything. I'll eat it if it's bad. And I was like, whoa, this is delicious. And I just kept eating it. And it was very spicy from what I recall. But I don't know. Because it's the sort of thing where like I feel like I'm consciously aware of things being spicy. It just like, I'm sure my brain just doesn't have the right it is not wired the right way. It does not feel that like sensation and be like, wow, this is like, I mean, it's associated with spice just by like name association, I suppose, but it's not like, it doesn't seem to have the same reaction. Oh, I don't seem to have the same reaction of like pain or discomfort necessarily until it gets like really extreme. It's the same thing with roller coasters, I said about roller coasters, the fact that, as I understand it, most people actually feel quite nauseous on roller coasters, like that, the sort of like stomach upturning feeling you get when you like, experience like that anti-gravity feeling, like over going like a hump in a roller coaster. Most people actually feel quite nauseous on that. Well, I feel like it, for some reason my brain associates it with excitement for something, like kind of like adrenaline rush rather than a nausea rush. So I get like double the adrenaline rush and then like zero nausea when I get on a roller coaster for some apparent reason. I don't know why necessarily. It just happened. Maybe it's genetics, maybe it's not. Also, it does not seem like Celeste is even here today. So I guess we had another shooting star meteor shower. That's a word, not shooting star. Yes, shooting star, but like many shooting stars all in quick succession. At some point this week. So yeah, I guess I just have sort of like a broken brains and association, right? Sorry about that little bit of a pause. Oh, there you are, Celeste. Never mind. Never count you out, Celeste. Let's think. We must be in Capricorn? No, actually, we might be into Aquarius now. It's pretty close on a boundary, I think. Capricorn. Okay, nice. That's one we don't have, mainly because I've been quite lax on actually trying to find Celeste every single night. Let's see, should we try and find out which ones we're missing? So we've got Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. So we're missing Virgo, the Virgo harp. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Okay, Virgo, Aquarius, Pisces. So two of those have been coming months, and Virgos is going to be hard, I suppose, to do. Let's just stand here, I suppose, and wish upon a shooting star if we can, if Joy-Con Drift allows me to. Apparently we have mail as well, and I just didn't check it for some reason. Okay, no, we're going to go up here, just so we can brace ourselves against moving upwards, so we don't keep randomly moving upwards, hopefully. Oh my god. Please. And then I'll just hold upwards like this, and it should keep me facing upwards the entire time. But yeah, no, genuinely, I quite like spicy food, I suppose. Well, actually, I don't know if I have the more I think about it, I don't know if I have a like particular fondness for it. I'm like mostly quite indifferent. I suppose a little bit of spicy, and I'm like, yes, there's going to be like a nice sort of interesting texture, I suppose. It's not really a texture, I suppose, texture to the flavour of a food. And enriches the flavour rather than taking away from it. But then if you get to too much spice, then I'm just sort of like, it's like, I don't know, I can only taste spice now. It's sort of like, there's nothing else to the flavour in the first place, which is, I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. I suppose it depends on how much you really like spice. Anyway, I suppose the natural, it's not really a natural question now I think about it, but you might ask a question, be like, have you tried like with super spicy peppers, or like the ones on like the hot ones, or those hot sauces? And genuinely, I would be interested in trying it, just to kind of see how spicy they are, to be honest. Obviously, I'm quite far away from any sort of celebrity status to actually necessarily get interviewed on hot ones. But yeah, again, Puss in Boots got like interviewed, right? By the way, apparently Puss in Boots' Last Wish is actually like a really good movie. Like, apparently. So, at some point, I need to definitely go and see it. And of course, by some point, I need to go see it. It will probably mean I'm going to watch it in like 8 years' time or something. That sounds about right. I mean, I still haven't seen Moana, despite Moana being like one of the most like I'm not sure well-renowned, but most well-received, that's the word, Disney movie in recent years. It's not very recent anymore, I suppose. Sorry, another pause. Yeah, what was I saying? I don't know, spicy food. There's a lot of different types of spicy food, isn't there, as well? Like, different types of spiciness, right? Like, I'm very, most accustomed, I suppose, to, like, a Chinese sort of spice, right? But, if you've ever had Chinese food and you ever had, like, Indian foods, both of which, can be, I'd imagine, equally spicy. Oh, I remember what I was talking about. I'll get back to the conversation in a bit. But on, like, equal levels of, like, the Scoville scale, which I believe is a spiciness scale, they have a different sort of taste to them, don't they? And I'm not sure if I necessarily am the most, like, qualified to describe it, because I don't even know if I necessarily could. But, if you have them, you know what I'm talking about, probably. Right? You sort of eat them, you're like, this is, like, different, isn't it? Good different. You know, they're both like interesting in their own right, certainly. You might be like, which one do I prefer? I'll be honest, and generally, I think it's unfair because I've had like probably 100 times more Chinese meals than I've had Indian meals, so it's not very fair for me to compare. And also, I've obviously, just by association with like, you know, family and like, you know, relatives and friends, etc., I've had more access to definitely higher quality Chinese food than Indian food. Like, my experience of Indian food is kind of like takeaways and random restaurants, I suppose, rather than my Chinese food, which can be like, ooh, homemade dishes, or, you know, going to actually going to China and having meals there. So I think that's an unfair comparison to draw in the first place. But anyway, to cycle back to a conversation I was saying before about like the super spicy things. Obviously, I don't know, and there's all of them about like Puss in Boots or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's not really relevant anymore, but, you know, he is into speed. Maybe I will be it someday. And if I will, then, you know, it'll be a fantastic time to actually try the hot ones. Sauces. I'm probably never going to buy them on my own accord, because I basically like never put hot sauce on my food, like optionally. Not because I don't dislike hot sauce necessarily. It's just like I feel like it's unnecessary most of the time, depending. Like I suppose on like the 5-point scale, I suppose, of, you know, flavors. You know, like sweet, salty, sour, spicy, umami, and bitter. So I guess it's a 6-point scale. I tend to leave savory, I guess, as well. Oh, that's umami. I kind of tend to lean more towards the salty and the umami flavours rather than necessarily just spice on its own. But I do like it here and there, you know. If it's like I go to a restaurant and it's got like a little bit of spice in it and a little bit of some chilies in it, I'll be like, ooh, delightful. Again, I'd probably save it for most foods and have, not necessarily true, you know, as long as the restaurant just passes like any sort of like base level of quality, then I'll be like, ooh, delightful. But yeah, so I suppose I'm a contradiction of like I both like spicy food and I'm also quite indifferent to it at the same time. I feel like it's just sort of just like, you know, I've conditioned myself to say, oh, I like X food, because I do genuinely like a lot of foods. But it's more like, but if you compare, on my scale, it's like I like all the foods, I suppose. But if you were to compare my scale to someone else's scale, it'd be like, wow, you like hate every food. It's like, no, I don't hate every food. It's just like, you know, everyone else's scale of food goes from like 1 to 10, while mine goes from like 5 to 7 or something. Is my comparison. But yeah, spicy food, chilies. What's the best spicy meal I've had? That's a good question. There's a Chinese dish called dan dan mian, which is basically like, it doesn't translate to, I don't know what it translates to actually or whatever, but it's like a spicy noodle dish. That's delicious. And something I really haven't had for a very long time, I suppose. And I guess I'd put that up there, to be honest. But there's a lot of like nice Korean food as well, which is quite spicy. Like any sort of like Korean meal which is like got a bit of spice to it. It's generally quite nice. Korean spice is also very different as well, because it's very sweet, is how I'd put it. Can you just stand still? But yeah, I don't know, spicy food gets a pass from me, gets a thumbs up. I just want to wave. We'll have to wave like this. But yeah, I don't know. Do you like spicy food? Do you not like spicy food? Can you eat spicy food? Can you not eat spicy food? Who knows? You know. There's a whole world of food out there, you know. Even if you can't eat spicy food, there's many other things you try, I'd say. But anyway, I'm going to round off this episode here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join my Dear Darling Discord, follow Pinterest down below. Hope we can see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now. And hopefully, the sound has been fine throughout this episode, because I will have not known.